My girlfriend of 4 years walked out on me for someone her family handpicked, someone they deemed more suitable. Fast forward 2 years, and now she's unraveling because I'm thriving, with a booming business and a woman I was truly meant to be with. Just so you know where I'm coming from, I'm 29, a software engineer who made the leap to startup founder. The whole mess really kicked off around 4 years ago, but things didn't hit peak drama until pretty recently. I'd always sensed Sophie's family didn't approve of me. I wasn't oblivious. We met back in college. She was studying business management at some elite private university, and I was the kid on a scholarship, eating ramen and chugging energy drinks while coding what I hoped would become the next big thing in tech. Our first encounter? Classic college mishap. She spilled coffee all over my laptop in the library. Instead of flipping out, I cracked a lame joke, and somehow that spiraled into 4 years of what I thought was something real. Her family never openly criticized me. Nope. The Whitmores were far too polished for that kind of honesty, but their sideways glances, the forced polite smiles, and the way conversations magically shifted to highlight the successful men in their social circle anytime I was present. Yeah, it didn't take a genius to read the room. It was glaringly obvious. In the early days of our relationship, Mrs. Whitmore would introduce me as just Sophie's friend from school. Friend. Even after 2 solid years of dating, unreal. At the time, I convinced myself Sophie wasn't like them, that she didn't buy into their world of inherited wealth, golf club politics, and obsession with appearances. She used to joke about how uptight her parents were, roll her eyes at the constant drama from their country club bubble. We'd cuddle up in my tiny studio apartment, which, by the way, had a bathroom ceiling that leaked like clockwork, and eat takeout on my futon while watching Netflix on my beat-up old laptop. She always said the money didn't matter, that she loved me for who I was, not for what I had. Turns out that wasn't entirely true. Our apartment was nothing to brag about. 3rd floor walk up, kind of a sketchy neighborhood, and neighbors who either screamed at each other or had ridiculously loud sex at 2 a.m., sometimes both. But it was home. It was our place. We strung up fairy lights, hung posters on the walls, and filled the windowsills with little succulents that Sophie kept buying but never watered. Guess who did that? I also had this scrappy old rescue cat named Milo who loved knocking stuff off counters, but always curled up between us at night. Sophie swore she was a dog person, but I'd catch her whispering to Milo like he was a baby when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Things started to unravel at what was supposed to be a casual family dinner at her parents' place. And by casual, I mean one of those over-the-top gatherings where everyone wears watches that could cover my rent for a year. Not that it's saying much. I was driving a 2008 Honda Civic with a dented bumper and a check engine light that had basically become part of the dashboard aesthetic. They sipped wine that probably needed its own security team while chatting about weekend getaways to the Hamptons or skiing in Aspen, like that was everyone's normal weekend routine. Meanwhile, I was budgeting for laundry day and getting excited over a burrito bowl from Chipotle, with guac obviously because I know how to treat myself. Sophie had told me it was just family and that her parents were finally making an effort to connect with me. I should have seen the red flag when she asked me to wear a blazer. I owned exactly one from my cousin's wedding 3 years ago. It was a bit snug. Startup stress eating is no joke, but I squeezed into it anyway. Even borrowed a friend's shoes so I wouldn't show up in my usual sneakers, but the second I walked in, it hit me. This wasn't a casual family dinner. Her dad's business partners were there, along with their sons. Guys who'd already made it big in law, finance, real estate, the kind of men whose LinkedIn pages read like Wall Street manifestos. Ivy League degrees, Goldman Sachs internships, and dads who played golf with senators. You know the type. Their conversations flowed effortlessly from hedge funds to private villas in Tuscany. Meanwhile, I was still deep in the trenches, coding nonstop, living off takeout, and hoping we'd finally squash a massive bug in our app before the next investor pitch. My life wasn't exactly postcard material. Then came the passive-aggressive digs, masked as small talk. Still working on that little tech project? Sophie's dad asked, swirling a whiskey in a glass that looked like it belonged in a museum. I corrected him, startup, tried to keep my voice even, told him we were in early development and making progress. I didn't mention that our last investor meeting had flopped or that my co-founder and I were clocking in 80-hour weeks just to stay afloat. One of the other men, tan in February, perfect teeth, gave a polite chuckle. Tech's pretty unstable these days, huh? Might be smart to have a backup plan. He said it like he was giving sage advice, not throwing shade. Sophie shifted in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. What struck me was that she didn't speak up for me. And that was new. Normally, she'd jump in with something sweet, say how passionate I was about my work or how much she believed in the vision we were building. But that night, not a word. She just kept sipping her wine and staring at the massive flower arrangement in the center of the table like it held the secrets of the universe. Then came Adrian. Sophie's mom introduced him like he was royalty who'd finally returned from exile. Adrian just made junior partner at Goldstein and Burke. She beamed, practically pushing him in Sophie's direction like a prize up for grabs. A corporate attorney with a Princeton degree and Yale Law credentials. She listed his achievements like she was reading off his Hinge bio, and to no one's surprise, she made sure he was seated right next to Sophie. "You two have so much in common," she sang, like a fairy godmother trying to orchestrate a love story. Meanwhile, I sat across the table, feeling like I was watching my own relationship unravel in real time. The entire evening felt less like dinner and more like a public display of rejection. The conversation kept circling back to themes like security, solid careers, long-term success, and Adrian? He couldn't stop bringing up his year-end bonus. Who does that at dinner? Or the upscale condo he just bought in a trendy zip code? Or how he was getting for full partner before turning 35. Me? I didn't talk about much. Every time I opened my mouth, someone would politely pretend to listen, nod for a second, then pivot to something shinier. That's when it clicked. This wasn't dinner. It was Sophie's wake-up call. They weren't just introducing her to someone new. They were presenting exhibit. What life could look like if she upgraded. Real men with real paychecks, real plans, not a struggling founder living off takeout and caffeine. It was like watching a split screen of two futures. Hers with Adrian, polished and perfect, versus hers with me, uncertain and scrappy. I somehow made it through that night. But honestly, the digs and the condescending smiles weren't the hardest part. It was Sophie. She never once defended me. Not a single word. Instead, she chuckled at Adrian's corny jokes, leaned in to ask about his firm, and lit up when he shared stories from law school. That kind of energy? She never once gave it to my startup. When we got back to my place, the shift in her energy was unmistakable. She complained about the elevator, which had been broken for ages. Nothing new there. She mentioned how cramped the bathroom felt. She even flinched a little when Milo jumped on the bed, which had never been a problem before. And then, just a week later, she gave me the talk. She showed up at my apartment right after work, still wearing her business casual outfit from her marketing job. The one she landed thanks to her dad's connections. No interview required, but that's another conversation. She sat across from me at the same cheap IKEA table we once assembled together while drinking boxed wine and laughing at how ridiculous the instructions were. That table had been with us through everything. Takeout nights, board games with friends, deep talks at 1 a.m. "I love you, but I need stability," she began. Every word felt rehearsed. I could almost picture her practicing it in front of the mirror, trying to get the tone just right. "I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out," she added. "My family made you realize you need someone who's already made it." I finished for her. She didn't even pretend to be surprised, just gave me a small nod, eyes on the overpriced watch her parents gave her last birthday. "It's not just about money," she added, "but come on, we both knew that was garbage. It's about having a plan, a future that feels secure." I could have argued, could have cried or begged or made wild promises about changing, about getting a real job, or doing whatever it took to mold myself into her family's version of a proper partner. But something inside me just broke. I nodded once. "All right." That's all I said. Her expression shifted, caught somewhere between shock and disappointment, like she'd expected fireworks or a full-blown meltdown. But I was tapped out. "That's it?" she asked, almost like she was hoping for a different reaction. "What do you want me to say, Sophie? That this is breaking me? That you're walking away from something real for a checklist your parents wrote? That they've convinced you love isn't enough?" I asked. She didn't answer, and really, she didn't have to. We both already knew the truth. 2 days later, she went full speed into her next chapter. Instagram made it official. Her and Adrian, matching outfits, posing at some five-star hotel in the Hamptons, his arms snug around her waist, her smile bright like nothing had happened. The caption? "Found my forever." Meanwhile, I was still lying on the side of the bed where she used to sleep, still picking strands of her hair out of the shower drain, still instinctively grabbing her favorite cereal when I went grocery shopping. I wish I could tell you that pain turned into fuel, that I went full beast mode, built an empire, and rose from the ashes like some Silicon Valley phoenix. But that would be a damn lie. The truth? I fell apart. 1 month after we broke up, my startup tanked, our prototype failed at a critical demo, and our remaining investors backed out. Just like that. The apartment? I couldn't keep up with the rent on my own. My savings were already on life support. And I wasn't about to go into debt just to hold on to a place filled with memories that now felt like weights. As for my pride, let's just say I didn't have much of it left. I crashed at my buddy Luke's place, a guy I'd known since freshman year. He never fully understood what I saw in Sophie, but he had my back when it counted. Luke's place was even smaller than mine had been, but without hesitation, he cleared out half his closet and made space for me and Milo in his spare room. That's what a real friend looks like. While I started applying for any job that could keep the lights on, I watched Sophie's picture-perfect new life unfold across my screen like some cruel reality show. Yeah, I know I should have just blocked her, deleted the apps, moved on, but heartbreak has this twisted way of making you chase pain like it owes you answers. One post after another. Lavish getaways to places I'd only seen on travel blogs, candlelit dinners at places where the menu doesn't dare show prices, gifts that probably cost more than I'd earned in a year. Every single post felt like a jab, like she was screaming, "This is what I was meant for, not you." And here's the part that really gutted me. Her family wasn't wrong. I had nothing to show for all the hustle I'd poured into that startup, years gone chasing a dream that tanked while Adrian, dressed like a GQ cover, cruised through life on a platinum track. My lowest point? That came a day I ran into them, Sophie and Adrian, at a downtown cafe. I wasn't there as a customer. I was there picking up an Uber Eats order, hustling deliveries to stay afloat. I remember standing in that same spot where we used to sit and share overpriced lattes. Now, just trying to grab a takeout bag and earn a decent tip. My car's AC was shot, my shirt clung to my back from hours in the heat, and my phone was clinging to 15% battery after a 10-hour shift. They were sitting outside, laughing, fingers interlocked, dressed like they'd stepped out of some luxury lifestyle ad. Sophie had this sleek new haircut, the kind of cut that screams five-star salon and money to burn. Adrian had on designer sunglasses that probably cost more than everything I owned. She saw me. Our eyes locked, and for a split second, I swear I saw it. Something regret? Guilt? Who knows? Whatever it was, it vanished fast, replaced by that hollow, polite smile people give to baristas and bellhops. Like I was just some vaguely familiar delivery guy. That moment cracked something inside me. That was the last day. I let myself be the sad story. I went back to Luke's place, deleted every single social media app, and made a vow. No more feeling sorry for myself. No more stalking her timeline like it held the secret to why I wasn't enough. No more pity parties. I burned it all down, distractions, comfort, excuses, and went into total rebuild mode. I was getting 4 hours of sleep a night, juggling 2 jobs, delivering during the day, night shifts stocking shelves, and using every spare second to resurrect my startup from scratch. But this time, I played it smart. No more chasing investors with flashy decks and half-baked products. I bootstrapped, built quietly, made something real before I even thought about pitching again. No more blind trust either. My circle shrank down to Luke and maybe 2 others who'd proved they were ride or die, and I stopped wasting time. I cut out complainers, time suckers, and people who only wanted to vent but never change. I was all in Luke. That guy was my rock. He'd drop off coffee at 2 m coding sessions, remind me to eat something that wasn't out of a wrapper, never once complaining that his living room looked like a server farm. He even used his connections to help me land meetings with companies when I finally had something to sell. The man deserves his own rags to riches story. And he got it. He's crushing it now. Dream job locked in. Just bought his first house. For 2 full years, I vanished from Sophie's world. Radio silence. Didn't know where she was, who she was with, whether she'd married Adrian or moved to Paris. And to be real, I stopped caring. While she was busy playing step-forward wife to a man her family approved of, I was grinding like my life depended on it, because it kind of did. Funny thing is, my new startup idea actually came out of all my failures. I ditched the sexy consumer apps and went all in on something boring but necessary. B2B legal tech, specifically an AI-powered tool that could analyze contracts in seconds, stuff junior lawyers usually spend hours slogging through. Not flashy, not viral, but it solved a real problem, one I knew firsthand from all those late nights, try to decode legalese on my own. And then everything flipped. One day we hit the sweet spot, market fit, the right client, a rave review in a niche industry mag, and boom. Suddenly, I wasn't struggling, I was scaling. We had companies knocking on our door, investors chasing us. The same people who ghosted me were now sliding into my inbox. And the cherry on top, my company, yeah, the one they all thought was a joke, was now stepping onto the same field as Adrian's firm. He was about to find out just how fast tables can turn. It took 2 years of blood, sweat, doubt, and silence, of nearly breaking, of wondering if maybe Sophie and her parents had been right all along. But I kept going, and now I wasn't alone. I had a crew, a team who believed in what we were building, who hustled just as hard, who'd become my second family. We had our own running jokes, our Friday rooftop beer tradition, and those legendary late-night marathons trying to meet deadlines we probably had no business pulling off, but somehow we always did. Then one day, things just clicked. The company wasn't just hanging in there anymore. We were growing fast. We'd locked in a huge client, one of the top 5 law firms in the country. That single win snowballed into more deals, more investor interest, and way more attention in the legal tech world. Within a few months, we were scaling internationally. First London, then Singapore. And the irony? Our biggest impact ended up being in financial legal tech, the exact sector Adrian built his career in. Our AI solutions were automating the grind that junior associates like him had to slog through. Suddenly, my company was threatening the very foundation of firms like his, and he had no clue I was behind it. The first time I saw Sophie again wasn't planned. It was at this ultra-exclusive industry event. Not only was I there, I was the keynote speaker. Just a year before, I couldn't even afford the basic pass to that thing. Now, I was the guy on stage explaining how our tech was disrupting legal workflows. After I wrapped up, I was shaking hands with executives, investors, industry insiders, wearing a suit that for once actually fit. And then I saw them, Sophie's parents, standing near the bar. They looked different, not smug, not superior. Her mom froze with her champagne midair, her eyes wide. Her dad, he gave me this slow, deliberate nod, like he finally saw me as someone, like I had earned my place at the table. Then I saw her, Sophie, off to the side. She stared at me like I was some ghost from a past she wasn't ready to face. She looked beautiful, of course, but there was something missing. That light, that curated Instagram sparkle, it wasn't there. She didn't walk over, I didn't either. But I saw it, the shift in her face, surprise, recognition, and then something deeper, regret. And that was just the beginning. Word got around that her relationship with Adrian was falling apart. Friends we used to share started whispering details. The luxury lifestyle wasn't all it seemed. Adrian turned out to be exactly who I thought he was: controlling, image-obsessed, emotionally distant. At first, Sophie loved the aesthetic, the first-class flights, 5-star resorts, the constant validation. But once the novelty wore off, reality hit. He was barely around, always working late or out networking with female coworkers. He had full control of the money. She had no independence, no voice. He micromanaged her life, her clothes, her tone, even her social circle. And when she spoke up, her parents sided with him. Every time, she wasn't the prize anymore. Sophie had traded love and loyalty for stability. And now she was locked into a miserable, gilded cage. The golden handcuffs were tight. A few months later, I got an unexpected message from her dad. He personally invited me to a private business event, one of those ultra-elite gatherings where fortunes change hands over overpriced scotch and handshakes. The kind of place I used to dream about. Now, they wanted me there, not out of charity, out of necessity. I was a player now, and they knew it. I showed up fashionably late because why not? The room was a sea of tailored suits and quiet power, and across it, I spotted Sophie and Adrian. Adrian looked different, haggard, on edge, glued to his phone. His firm was bleeding clients, and I knew exactly why. My company had carved out a huge portion of their business. Our software was replacing the very foundation of their billable hours, and they were scrambling. He still didn't realize I was the cause. But Sophie? She knew. The moment she saw me, she froze. Same look as last time, but this time it hit harder. Not just surprise, not just recognition, but deep, unmistakable regret. A week later, she reached out. Her number was long gone from my phone, but the text still came through. Hey, it's been a while, would love to catch up, just talk. I ignored it. The next day, I know things ended badly. I've just been thinking a lot lately. I miss our conversations. Ignored that too. Then she did something desperate. She showed up at my office. It was late, close to 8 p.m. Most of the team had already left. I was still there, grinding through emails when the receptionist buzzed. "There's a woman here to see you," she said. "Says it's important." I didn't have to ask who it was. I considered telling the receptionist to send her away, but then I realized this was it, the moment, so I told her to let her in. She stepped inside slowly, taking in the view from my corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek minimalist decor, the kind of place that screams success, a far cry from the cramped little apartment we used to share. Her usual confidence? Gone. The same woman who once looked me dead in the eye and said I wasn't in her league now looked like she was second-guessing everything. She offered a soft, almost broken smile. "Hey," she said, voice quiet. "It's been a while." I leaned back, arms folded, saying nothing, just watched her squirm under the weight of the silence. She shifted, then took a deep breath. "I was wrong," she said, "about everything. I listened to my parents. I threw away something real for something that looked good on paper." She paused, waiting for some kind of reaction. I gave her nothing. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss us." "Us," I repeated, tilting my head. She nodded quickly, hope flickering in her eyes like maybe this wasn't a total lost cause. "I know I messed up, but maybe we could start fresh?" I stared at her for a beat, then let out a laugh. Not cruel, not angry, just genuinely amused. "Start over," I said, shaking my head. "Sophie, we ended the moment you decided they mattered more than I did." She flinched, but I kept going. I'd waited too long for this to pull punches. "You didn't want me when I had nothing. You didn't believe in me when I was building, but now that I've made it suddenly, you want to come back." Her eyes dropped to the floor. I stood up, adjusted the jacket of my tailored suit. Funnily enough, probably made at the same place Adrian gets his. "Sophie," I said calmly, "I don't think about you, I don't miss you, and I definitely don't need you." And then, perfect timing, the office door opened. My girlfriend stepped in, brilliant, gorgeous, a product designer I met at a tech conference. She'd backed my idea when it was still just a sketch on a whiteboard in Luke's living room. She believed in the mission when no one else did. And Sophie? She went pale. I smiled at my girlfriend, then turned back to Sophie. "I did find someone in my league," I said. "Turns out it just wasn't you." I walked her to the door, opened it, and closed it gently behind her. But that moment wasn't the end. If anything, it was the spark. Within weeks, the fallout started snowballing. Whispers spread fast. Adrian's firm was in trouble, serious trouble. Our platform had gone from new tech to market standard, and fast. We were undercutting their billing model, finishing tasks in minutes that used to take associates hours. Clients weren't just intrigued. They were jumping ship in droves. Adrian was spiraling. I heard from mutuals that he was clocking 80-hour weeks, scrambling to hold on to whatever prestige he had left. Word was, he was losing his temper constantly, blaming junior staff, berating his team. Investors were pulling out. The board was losing patience. Their old school approach was crumbling, and they had no idea how to adapt. Best part? Adrian still didn't know who was behind the storm, gutting his career. He hadn't made the connection. While he unraveled, Sophie's parents were having their own little crisis. They'd spent years talking down to me, acting like I was some charity case not good enough for their daughter now. The broke kid they mocked was richer, more respected, and more connected than half their friends combined. Suddenly, they were trying to rewrite history. It started with little gestures, a congratulatory email from her mother, a passing mention in an interview from her father, calling me a visionary in legal innovation. They sent another invite to a high-tier business mixer. Networking, they said, just good business. I ignored it all. Then one day my phone rang. It was Sophie's dad. I picked up, curious. His voice was warm. "I think we should talk, son," he said, like we hadn't spent years on opposite ends of Cold War. He rambled about partnerships, alliances, water under the bridge. Then came the real reason. "Sophie's been having a hard time," he said after a pause. "We all make mistakes, but maybe if the two of you just sat down and—" I ended the call before he finished. There was no apology, no accountability, just spin, just damage control. And that was the last time I ever took a call from any of them. The moment Jessica finally realized I was the one behind his downfall, honestly, it was beautiful. I was speaking on a panel at a major business conference, big crowd, big cameras, all about the future of AI in the legal world. At one point, the CEO of a top-tier firm chimed in and said, "These guys are revolutionizing everything. Even the biggest firms are struggling to keep pace." Some legacy names we all know. And as the camera panned across the audience, there he was, Jessica, front row. His face turned ghost white. The look in his eyes, pure shock, like someone had just unplugged him from the Matrix. That moment of clarity when he realized I wasn't just some failed boyfriend from his girlfriend's past. I was the man tanking his entire career. Later that night, I got a message from a mutual acquaintance. Bro, Jessica just snapped in a strategy meeting. You got to see this. Apparently, one of his own partners brought up my company as the standard they needed to keep up with, and Jessica completely lost it, slammed the conference table, started yelling. Full meltdown mode, called me a fraud, claimed we'd implode, but the real kicker? No one in the room was nodding along. They weren't backing him, they were staring at him like he'd gone off the rails, because by then, everyone else had figured out what Jessica hadn't. He was no longer the future, I was. Now, I could have left it there, I could have let the man spiral and moved on. But I had one last move to make. A few months later, we closed on our biggest acquisition yet. A small but powerful firm, one that just so happened to be Jessica's direct competitor. This wasn't just expansion, this was strategic, it was checkmate. Once the ink was dry, we reached out to several of Jessica's biggest clients, and they came over to us, fast. Within half a year, his firm was drowning, revenue tanked, morale plummeted. They had no choice but to merge with a larger, more stable firm. And Jessica? He wasn't a partner anymore. He wasn't running anything. He was just another suit in the background, probably stuck doing the exact kind of grunt work he used to brag about escaping. As for Sophie, she ended up exactly where she tried so hard not to be. Married to a man whose entire career had gone into a nosedive. She chose him for stability. And now she was stuck with a man barely keeping his head above water. And me? I had one, not just in business, but in life. I built something from scratch. I created real impact. I found happiness on my terms. The last time I ever saw Sophie was at an airport lounge. Of all places, I was flying out to Tokyo, expanding into the Asia market, when I spotted her sitting alone near the corner. No high-end brands, no designer labels. She looked tired. Life had worn her down. She noticed me almost immediately. Her eyes lit up for a split second. Like maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance. She started to stand. I shook my head once, no anger, no drama, just no. Then I turned and boarded my first-class flight without a second glance. And that was it. The truth is, I never needed to ruin Sophie. She managed that just fine on her own. She gave up something real for a fantasy. And when the fantasy collapsed, she was left with nothing to fall back on. Jessica, the man who once thought he was untouchable, ended up a shell of who he used to be. Their picture-perfect life? Gone. Reduced to mediocrity. Meanwhile, I was living the life I used to dream about. My company had become a serious force. I had a team that felt like family, a partner who actually believed in me, and a future I was proud of. I never replied to Sophie's last few messages. Never acknowledged the silent likes on old posts, because in the end, the best revenge wasn't sabotaging her life. It was living mine, fully, joyfully, and without her. TLDR, my girlfriend left me because I wasn't successful enough for her high society parents. 2 years later, my startup blew up and accidentally tanked her new man's career. I watched their world fall apart while I built mine from the ground up. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up overnight. Thanks for the awards and wild support. A few answers. Yep, I'm still with my incredible girlfriend. 1, 5 years strong now. Milo the cat is absolutely thriving and living his best life in our pet-friendly office. And yes, the company's still growing. We just opened another office last quarter. Do I feel bad for Jessica? Not even a little. Edit 2. For those asking if this is fake, honestly, I wish had to change some key details for privacy, but everything you've read here, it's real. Sometimes life really does hand you a movie ending.